The Super Bowl is just a couple of days away, and I wanted to do a very special video. I just recapped. My last video that I recapped was for the NFC Championship game, and now that it's the Super Bowl, I'm actually partnering up with one of my good buddies, Spencer Smith, and we are going back and forth answering some very important questions specific to the Super Bowl. In this video, we're going to answer very specific questions such as what are some of the key takeaways, what each team must do if they're going to be successful and hoist that Lombardi trophy, and then we're going to also end it with some pick ems that you need to be targeting for this upcoming matchup. Before moving Spencer on and start asking questions, I'm going to go over a few quick things as far as news around the league. And for starters, Myles Garrett has made it official. He is asking for a trade from the Cleveland Browns. And this is a big deal because we all know how talented this guy is. This guy is at the peak of his prime, someone who's been an amazing defensive player. One could argue one of the best in the league, and now he's making himself available in the market. Now, whether or not a trade will happen is obviously yet to be questioned, but you're hearing different rumblings about which teams should actually make a move for him, whether it be the Packers. Of course, the Eagles are always involved when you got a GM like Howie Roseman, but it'll be very intriguing to see where Myles Garrett ends up going and whether or not he'll be able to stay put. Now, I did see a very interesting scenario here where maybe Cleveland reaches out to Minnesota. And what I'm saying is, what if Cleveland were to ask Minnesota, hey, what are your plans for Sam Darnold? Because if you're looking to re-sign Sam Darnold and you think this is the quarterback that you're going to roll with, does J.J. McCarthy become available? Because remember, Cleveland has the second overall pick in the upcoming draft. Does that become now an attractive piece, assuming that Cleveland isn't happy with either Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders there at quarterback? So something to be mindful of as far as a potential scenario. And speaking of another trade target, this one was actually quite juicy, and one that I didn't see coming was Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp was informed by the Los Angeles Rams that he is going to be traded immediately. And it makes sense considering how much money he's going to be due. And we've seen Puka Nacua emerge as that wide receiver one for this Los Angeles Rams offense. And it just makes sense that they are looking for better alternatives as far as clearing up cap space and providing a much more youthful wide receiver core for that Los Angeles Rams offense. But it'll be very intriguing because Cooper Kupp is someone that has been extremely successful, albeit he's had suffered some injuries over the past couple of seasons, but he's still someone who's been extremely effective. Now, if we're talking about the dynasty and fantasy football implications of it, it's going to be really interesting to see, of course, where the market is going to be valuing him right now, because we do not know of any kind of teams that have been front runners to acquire Cooper Kupp, but it'll be very important to see where he goes, because that'll obviously play a huge part in whether or not we determine his value to be high, stay the same, or if it takes a dip. So Cooper Kupp officially on the trade market, something that's very juicy, very intriguing to keep our eyes out for. And before we go any further, just to give you some context, my guest, Spencer Smith, and I, both me and him are huge Eagles fans, and we love fantasy football. We've actually created content in the past before together, so I'm excited that he's going to be featured in this video. And I figured a fun question to ask each of us is going to be how our Philadelphia Eagles fandom began. Spencer, go ahead and break it down for us, man. Where did your Philadelphia Eagles fandom start?
Yeah, so my Eagles fandom started back when I was a kid, so I had this jacket of sorts. It was like this Eagles jacket like for a child, and just growing up, that was kind of the team that I gravitated toward just simply from having that jacket. And as a kid, me and my brother, we played the Madden games, and pretty quickly I just became a fan of Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook, Terrell Owens, Todd Pinkston. Brian Dawkins actually got his jersey in the closet, and yeah, so that whole group is really where I started watching the Eagles, and it's hard not to become a fan when you're watching that group work. They go to the Super Bowl, obviously come up short against the Patriots, but a little over a decade later, we got them with Nick Foles in there. But yeah, man, I'd just say it started as a kid, and I went through the Chip Kelly era, went through leaving Andy Reid, went through all of it, and then, of course, Doug Peterson comes in, wins us a Super Bowl. We go back into purgatory there in 2019, 2020, but we were able to get out of it with Nick Sirianni and this group. But yeah, man, that's how I became a fan of the Eagles.
Nice. And very similar to you, Spencer, I actually began being a fan back when I was in 8th grade. So I may be dating myself here, but that was the first year that Terrell Owens went to the Philadelphia Eagles. And prior to that, I didn't really have a team that I watched in the NFL because a lot of what I consumed of as a young kid was a lot of basketball. So I loved the Lakers. Kobe Bryant was my favorite player of all time. I was really into basketball. And for my birthday, when I was going to 8th grade, my dad got me an Xbox, and I was so ecstatic because he got me a whole bunch of different games. He got me NFL 2K5, and for those of you that don't know, that's still one of the goated NFL games, probably even better than Madden to this day. And it had T.O. on the front cover. And again, I have no allegiance to any teams at this time, so I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to play with the guy in the front cover. I'm going to play with his team, and it was the Philadelphia Eagles. And I started playing them on the franchise or the season mode or whatever. And yeah, just like you, all the different players that you mentioned, Todd Pinkston, Brian Westbrook, Brian Dawkins, Jeremiah Trotter, Javon Curse was on that defense as well, and I just became a fan. I was hooked, and that so happens to also be the year that they go on this amazing run to the Super Bowl where they unfortunately lose to the Patriots, but then that's where the fandom grew. And of course, just like you just mentioned all those up and down seasons. The Chip Kelly era was a very unique one, to say the least. But yeah, man, we've been able to stick it through, and I believe that we're living in what is now the golden era of the Philadelphia Eagles history, because you're seeing them time and time again be contenders. We were not only champions a few years back, but we've retooled and we made a run a couple years ago, and after the up and down seasons that we had in between the run that we have now currently going on, I think it's been a fun ride. And for me, it's even more fun because I get to include my family, include my 2 little girls who are becoming Eagles fans as well. So, but with that though, let's go ahead and go over some key takeaways for this game. And I'm going to go ahead and give it to you first, Spencer. So what is some of the main key takeaways that you have for this matchup?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from this game is going to be the secondary. How can the Eagles secondary keep up with Mahomes and these fast receivers of Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Zach Bond's going to have to do what he does against Kelsey, of course, right. But even DeAndre Hopkins and Juju Smith-Schuster have been able to get in on some of the action in these last 2 games. If we go back to the Rams for a second, they missed some opportunities the Eagles secondary did, not only in letting the Rams march down, especially at the end of the game, but early in the game, there were some drives that were just happening way too quickly. They also missed out on some key interceptions, some moments that Cooper DeJean and Isaiah Rodgers could have absolutely capitalized on. Now, of course, we saw against the Commanders, they were able to flip that around and, of course, put pedal to the metal against that offense. I mean, the defense for Philly, my goodness, against the Commanders was absolutely incredible. So for me, my biggest takeaway for this game is going to be, how can the Eagles secondary stack up against this Chiefs passing attack? That's what I'm going to be looking out for.
Yeah, and that's a really good take. And actually, I'm going to transition it and go a little bit different here. I'm going to more so focus on Kansas City, because we all know that the Philadelphia Eagles offense, it looks very different than it did 2 years ago. It's a lot heavier on the run. And we always knew that this offense, especially 2 years back, was still very strong with this running attack that it has. Obviously, with Saquon Barkley, he becomes a force multiplier where it just magnifies how effective this team runs the ball. And so far, in 3 games this postseason, Philadelphia has averaged 227.6 rushing yards in each of their first 3 games. It's freaking insane. And now when you look back versus this Kansas City defense, they haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all season long. It's been a while, actually. However, what does get me a little intrigued, though, and I'll also go over this a little bit later into the show when we talk about some of the key things I'm going to be looking if Kansas City wants to win this matchup, is that they allowed 149 rushing yards to the Texans in their first matchup in the playoffs. They then allowed 147 rushing yards to the Buffalo Bills. And again, no disrespect to Joe Mixon, no disrespect to James Cook. And however, you're facing Saquon Barkley. You're facing this number 1 offensive ranked line that the Philadelphia Eagles have. And just a quick stat that I wanted to throw out there, that the Chiefs haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher since Christmas of 2023, when Zamir Wright rushed for 145 yards on the ground. So I get Kansas City is obviously very effective. You're seeing two strengths coming together for each team. Obviously, the defense for Kansas City. You also have this great running attack for Philadelphia. So it'll be very intriguing to see which one obviously becomes the one that'll stick out. But that's going to be the main thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye out for this matchup. Now, let's go over, if the Philadelphia Eagles want to win, Spencer, what must they do to be successful?
The Eagles will win this game if they stick to their game plan. We see time and time again teams come into a big moment, a big game, and they think they got to change things up. They got to go from what's been working to try to trick the other team or something. Like, yes, Saquon is your team's MVP. Him and Jalen back-to-back are incredible. Feed that system, feed that situation. And then, of course, on the defense, the secondary is going to have to keep doing what it's been doing. Zach Bond's going to have to do what it's been doing. But most importantly, that defensive line has to rush Patrick Mahomes. And dadgummit, they've got to get a sack. I mean, dang. But yes, this Eagles team needs to just stick to what they've been doing. It has clearly been working. They put up a 50 burger on the Commanders. So stick to what you're doing. Pass rush the crap out of Patrick Mahomes, force feed the ball to Saquon, and yes, every now and then, throw the ball if need be. But if you cannot live off of Saquon alone, then Jalen is good enough to pass the ball where it needs to go. But just stick to what you've been doing, and do not do this thing where you're just going to change up the game plan to try and trick the other team.
Yeah, you know what? I like that. And I'm glad that you went that route because I want to actually focus more so on the defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this Philadelphia Eagles interior line has been absolutely amazing, led with Jalen Carter. We love to see the emergence, too, from Jordan Davis. And that is going to be the key is, can this Philadelphia Eagles disrupt this Kansas City offensive line? Not only in preventing the run from really developing with Pacheco, but also being able to disrupt Patrick Mahomes. Now, here's a really interesting tweet I saw from Brandon Daig on X, and he shares about how the Philadelphia Eagles should really keep an eye out on guard Mike Caliendo from the Kansas City Chiefs, and here is why. Over the last few games, he's actually allowed 13 pressures. That actually makes it the second worst in the NFL because he's currently graded at a score of 38. That's actually pretty horrendous. And another thing I saw that's really interesting too is that the Philadelphia Eagles defense, their EPA back in 2022 when they made that run in the Super Bowl, when they first faced the Kansas City Chiefs, was 24th. Fast forward now, this season, they are first in that category. And this is actually more so specific when they're not able to rush the quarterback. And that speaks to how effective not only is this defensive line, but how well this secondary is, going back to your first point that you made earlier on the key takeaways. And back in 2024, this defense looked really different, and I know that you'll go into that as well, but Hassan Reddick was more so leading this pass rush, and we didn't see the same kind of effectiveness that we're seeing now with the secondary. And when you fast forward in 2024, the Philadelphia Eagles defense ranks in some of the more important categories. They're first in efficiency, they're first in yards per play, they're first in passing yards per game, and they're first in first downs per game. So I think that the defense is going to have to be a huge contributor if the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be successful versus the Kansas City Chiefs. So with that, though, let's go to now transition to what will the Kansas City Chiefs need to do if they want to go ahead and pull off this historic three-peat that they are looking to pursue.
So the Chiefs can win this game if, they slow down Saquon, but you can't. You can't do it.
Right.
We haven't seen it happen yet. So I understand the sentiment of if you can slow down Saquon, then you could mitigate the run game so that Jalen has to, but you can't. This team that's going against the Chiefs is entirely different from the team that they went against 2 years ago. This defense, I think I saw an image the other day that's like 3 or 4 of these defensive players, maybe only 3, are the same defensive players from the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They have completely reworked and reloaded this defense.
Right.
This offensive line is the number 1 offensive line in the NFL. The Eagles defense as a whole is the number 1 defense in the NFL. And the Eagles have the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL. I think this game, if you slow down Saquon and you pass rush the crap out of Jalen Hurts, then there's your recipe for success on the Chiefs' defensive side of the ball. But then you got to worry about the Eagles' defense. And saying that, if we could just slow down Saquon, that's what everybody's been trying to do. So honestly, that's how they're going to be able to win, but they're not going to be able to do it. So I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. But man, I can't see a way where this happens this time. The Eagles stopped the Patriots from three-peating back in 2017. And the Eagles, I believe, are going to stop the Chiefs from doing it again this Sunday.
Yeah, man, I agree. I think this is going to be such a very intriguing thing to be mindful of. And if I'm going to, I'm going to just add to your point, the thing that Kansas City is going to have to do is going to have to try to slow down this running game. Because we know, I have all the faith in the world that Jalen can throw the ball and can help the Eagles succeed. But going back to your first point, we know what the recipe is for this offense to be successful in Philadelphia. Sprinkle in the run heavy, and then, of course, if need be, then rely on Jalen Hurts to obviously throw the ball and to get us into these situations where we can be in a good position to win. But the running game is the true image of this team. This is the true identity of this team, is to lead with the run and rely on this great defense, and also maybe utilize some explosive plays from these great wide receivers in Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. Now, going back to the point, if Kansas City is going to be successful, this defense has to find a way to try to cool down Saquon Barkley. To your point, a few years ago, Kansas City was actually ranked 16th in points allowed to opposing offenses. This year, they are actually ranked 4th in that category. So both of these defenses have gotten better. And of course, it's going to be very intriguing to see how well they're able to match up. And one other key thing I want to also be mindful of is that Steve Spagnuolo is such a genius when it comes to disguising the blitz, especially when it comes from his defensive backs. And that could disrupt Jalen Hurts, being that we've always had a few concerns about how well he's able to pick up the blitz, how well he's able to make the right read when in those circumstances. So if Kansas City will be successful in this matchup, it's going to be being able to try to cool down this running game and, of course, utilize that blitz to disrupt Jalen Hurts. All right, cool. So as we get ready to land the plane here, we are going to now go over a few pick'ems that I think are really intriguing. So I'm going to go ahead and start first. I'm going to go with, Saquon Barkley. I'm going to go with him hitting the over with 115.5 yards in this game. This is per Prize Picks. And you know what? Despite Kansas City having this very impressive streak of holding running backs to under 100 rushing yards, this is their first time facing a offense that features a running back like Saquon Barkley with an offensive line as strong as one in Philadelphia. So that'll be my pick for this matchup. Saquon Barkley easily hitting the over with 115.5 yards on the ground. All right, Spencer, with that, go ahead and give us your take for the pick'em that you are looking forward to in this matchup.
I'm a simple man, Ivan. I think I'm going to have to agree with you here that my favorite pick'em in this game is going to be Saquon over 115.5 total yards. And listen, that one's an easy gimme. If they can slow down Saquon under 116 yards, well, then dang. But no, I think, that's definitely my favorite pick'ems. I'm going to roll with you there on that one.
All right, cool. So, you know what? I'm going to go ahead before we say goodbye. I'll throw one bonus one for y'all. And that's going to be Travis Kelce hitting the under with 62.5 receiving yards. And it's quite simple. Philadelphia has actually allowed the fewest receiving yards to opposing tight ends, and I get it. This is Travis Kelce, future Hall of Famer, one of Patrick Mahomes' favorite targets, but this for me will be an easy go on the under for Travis Kelce going under 62.5 receiving yards in this matchup. So Spencer, thank you so much for being part of this episode. And with that, guys, if you found value in this video, do me a solid, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know, what did you think? What are your favorite pick'ems? I need some predictions as well on what you think the turnout will be for this great game that we're looking forward to this Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned for some more videos as we get ready to gear up for Super Bowl 59. And until next time, take care. God bless. Peace.